And I firmly believe that every healthcare organization should put as much data as possible in their EHR within reason. There's a time and a place to archive stuff, but I think we've got to get out of the habit of not doing things because they're hard.
Mm. Mhm.
It is hard to put data in an EHR, I get it, but it's the right thing to do for a lot of what we should be doing. So instead of storing it and never looking at it, I think it's the right thing for healthcare organizations to start moving as much data as possible into an EHR. They're like main EHR, so you can have complete patient records for your patients and your providers.
Mhm.
So that's one thing, just educating people that that's one, possible, and two, high value for them.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My name is Joao Camargo, and my guest here today is Dominique Gross, who is the CEO of Hart. Dominique, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have this conversation, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Great to be
Yeah,
here.
100%. And why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about Hart, who you guys are, what you do, who you help, and any other context you'd like to share about the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Hart is a 12-year-old, now going on 13-year-old company. We're a health IT company. We help hospitals, physician clinics, any sort of healthcare organization kind of do four key things in the market around data movement, storage, and streaming.
Mm.
Um, we also help with disaster recovery, cybersecurity, pieces like that. So, really focused on helping make data more accessible to providers, to healthcare organizations trying to improve care.
Amazing. Tell me a little bit more about that spark that created this entire thing. Why did the company become existent in the first place?
Yeah. Well, I joined Hart quite a while after they found their spark, but really, Hart got formed around the time of the High Tech Act when about 12 ish, 13 years ago, more, there was a big push to move towards electronic health records. And so there was a huge need to start connecting all these different kinds of electronic health records because
Hmm. Hmm.
the first step was just moving from paper to digital, which was still an ongoing task, believe it or not. Um, and now that there's been kind of a mass adoption, people are on different systems. And so those disparate systems left data in isolated places. And so when Hart was originally formed, the idea was, can we create a data exchange platform for other folks to actually leverage that data and then start building upon that platform? Um,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
the last 10 years, obviously the market has changed a little bit. So we've kind of shifted that vision from what was originally more of a like ability to open up that data exchange and develop on it to now really being able to make data more accessible to all different kinds of people. So the core of the technology and the concept is still very much the same, but what we've evolved it is trying to really make it so that you can have a single ecosystem for all patients, providers, healthcare organizations to access data consistently, um, which is super timely given the market and kind of where things are going today. But it's been a journey, as most small businesses are, of finding that kind of spark to get started and then finding the good product market fit to really grow and establish commercialization.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that as well. And I would love to dive into a little bit on the data side of things, as you're mentioning. I think
Mhm.
there's so many companies that have huge amounts of data now, and that's not the problem. The problem is
Yeah.
knowing how to use it, how to collect it efficiently, how to actually channel it in the right way. And out of I don't even know how many conversations I've had now, 270 something plus. It's such a recurring pattern that so many of these businesses, yeah, we're now using AI and tech, and yeah, sure, all these things can be leveraged, but funneling it in the right direction, in the right methodology, in a very systematic way where it's efficient. It's not just gathering data to gather data. It's no, you're doing it in a very proficient way that leads
Mhm.
to a more positive outcome. Tell me a little bit more about how you guys do that, because it's so, to me at least, it's so important to segment those two things. It's data collection is one thing, data
Yeah.
utilization, and then funneling from there is such a more important thing to do with it.
Gosh, you've just described what makes us special in the market. I love it. Thank you.
You're
um,
welcome.
Yeah, it's a great tee up because I think there is a lot of noise in that market in general. loosely in healthcare and in most markets, we call it interoperability. And I would argue that that really doesn't mean a whole lot. A lot of
Mm,
people say interoperability is sort of an overarching phrase to like move data and make things work, right? To
mm,
have data where you want it and make it usable. Well, I think we find more often than not that that's actually where the secret sauce is in getting things extracted, collected,
mm,
aggregated, normalized, and then made available, right? In healthcare, it's super complex because you often have as many as 16, 18 different kinds of clinical applications or
mm.
electronic health records, sometimes more. We have one client who's retired 45 different systems, and they're
Wow.
not a big health system. So the exponential amount and location of data is staggering these days. And to move into all the super sexy AI and all of these interesting things, you have to have that good foundation. So,
Mhm, mhm,
how Hart does it is super unique in the market. It's a big part of what brought me to Hart was just the ability to use technology in a really consistent, scalable way.
mhm.
And so, what we have been able to build and continue to do so is effectively kind of several pieces. The first is a library of configurations, is kind of how we call it. So,
Okay.
we've been building off of this experience over the last 10 plus years, all the different kinds of electronic health records that we've worked with. And we build data models to say, this is what this looks like. So,
Mhm,
90 plus configuration percents are looking just like that. And then we apply that to current clients to say, okay, if you're moving from A, you're going to go to B. What does that look like? What's the delta? And then we've built out automation to make that transformation happen to map
mhm,
from A
mhm,
to B. Um, and that's really where the magic happens. It's super efficient. It's very fast because obviously we've built out technology, the things that we can do these days to actually execute software to make transformations like that happen. And a lot of where our expertise then comes in is in the messy middle of the 10 to 15% that's
mm,
customized for every client.
mm, mm.
You always have nuances in data, things are in strange
Yeah.
places. Maybe there's something you've never seen before, or maybe you want to aggregate it to your own data lake, right? You have your own specs, whatever it might be. Um, that journey of being able to take a really standard, scalable thing and customize it to you, I think
Mhm.
makes Heart super unique. So makes everything really efficient,
Sure.
high data integrity, um, and accessible because you can put it wherever you want.
Mm,
And we've built a really flexible system to work with any and all EHRs or data sources, whatever it might be. Um, and I think it's a really special thing in this market because we need that flexibility. We
mhm.
need the ability to kind of take things from all different places and pull it together in a consistent way because that's how you're going to run AI, right? That's
Yeah,
how you're
for
going to
sure.
take advantage of a lot of these innovations in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and you actually just reminded me of something I heard, maybe 2 days ago, but, like, very, very recently. You were talking about the secret sauce, and the
Hmm.
secret sauce for almost every single company is not really in the details, it's in the execution.
Yes.
Because so many of these different companies can have different things that they say they all do. And yes,
Yeah.
this is like simple. Hey, this we help you with selling, we help you with marketing, we help you with project management, all these things. And then you're looking at all these companies like, yeah, these are all the same. It's like, no, no, no.
Hmm.
Yes, they are. A lot of them are, and this is, I can't speak for everyone. A lot of them are, and they can't
Yeah.
differentiate themselves. But for some of the ones that are not, the difference is not, hey, they both do project management, so they're the same. No, no, it's the
Right.
execution is what makes a difference, and that allows then their clients and moving on from there to
Yeah.
really flourish from there, which I think is always a good discrepancy to notice. Not about
Hmm.
the details, the features and all these things. It's about the execution behind the scenes that nobody really sees. So,
Yeah.
not
I
sure if
think
you agree with that.
totally spot on for our market. Um, Almost to a T. How I usually like to describe our market in healthcare is you kind of have two ends of a spectrum, and we sit right in the middle. And one end of the spectrum exactly is the how. So we have interoperability companies that will, let's say, do data connections and they're just passing through data. Usually it's one patient at a time, like one
Mm,
patient record at a time. They're not doing bulk sets of data, things like that typically. And it's just moving something from A to B. There's no
mhm,
magic happening in the middle typically of like, let's, normalize or maybe clean up this data, whatever it
Mhm,
might be. So
mhm.
that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is we have a lot of consultants in our space
Mm,
where they're manually doing work, which is crazy to me for different reasons. Maybe they're using tools, third party solutions. There's a lot of AWS stuff off the shelf that you can use these days, but they're generally doing it manually without like some consistent, repeatable process.
mm,
We sit pretty much in the middle where we're using really consistent, repeatable software to execute what we do. But we recognize it's a really complex market and you need
mhm,
some intervention to be able to make it customized to that client's needs.
mhm.
And so you can't necessarily get away from it all entirely from an automation standpoint. You have to be able to kind of think both sides of having intervention to make it meaningful, but also using as much repeatable consistency in your process
Yeah, for
software.
sure. Because yeah,
Yeah.
then that way you're not just like formatting this thing, like throw it to you. Hey, here's what you're gonna have, and here's what's gonna work for everyone else. Like, no, no, no.
Right.
Every business, every single organization is going to be different. So
Yeah.
always important to differentiate there. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'd love to shift the conversation here a little bit more into Heart itself and the
Yeah.
company and how you guys are growing. And something that I always like to highlight in these conversations is that business is not always sunshines and rainbows. And for someone looking outside in, they can say, "Oh, this company is doing great," and all these things that we hear.
Yeah.
But for us, the leaders internally, we all know how challenging the day to days can be. So when you're looking at the goals and the vision and all the things that you guys are trying to achieve, what are some of those challenges that you face on a day to day that can be hurdles into getting to that place or that target that you have?
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many in so many different ways. Particularly in small businesses, right? And I think Hart in particular has been on a journey to find really the right commercialization model is maybe how I would describe that. We
Mm,
use partners, we use referral friends to bring in business or a lot of different things. And I would say probably the most relevant in the last couple years has been an evolution of how we productize things.
okay.
When you're a software business, but you're offering solutions to people, it can get a little interesting. So I would say finding that right mix of product portfolio pricing plus how it's executed from a commercialization standpoint is probably um, been the most relevant in the recent, I would say, time. Um,
Mm,
because as you know, probably in small businesses, right, you can find and chase a lot of opportunities. Things will come to you naturally. If you're
yeah.
open and interested in solving and helping, you know, solve problems, you will get opportunities. It's really kind of weeding through those to say what's the most consistent work that we can offer high value and
Mm,
where can we do that consistently? Because otherwise, it ends up being a lot of
mhm,
really like bespoke, not necessarily super targeted,
mm,
and you can find yourself in development cycles endlessly for
mm,
markets without like clear direction and purpose.
mm,
Um, So I'd say that's where we spent a lot of time, particularly in the last like 18 months, just kind of
mhm,
iteratively working through that offering so that it's really simple, has a really like deep customer understanding of what do they need and how can we help them? And then where does that fit within the market in terms of
uh-huh.
partners and clients?
Huh. Interesting. And do you mean that in a way where you are just trying to find more of those high leverage opportunities that fit the pattern that you've seen? Or is it more of in a way where you're just trying to show the value to those opportunities coming through so that they can have that clear, call it the clear ROI that they can see from partnering with someone like you?
Yeah. It's kind of maybe a little bit of both.
Okay.
Um, and I say that because we're in a really interesting market. Um, from a data movement, interoperability, analysis, all that stuff, we estimate it's probably about a $4 billion a year market,
Okay.
which is huge. The reality is, I bet if I had to guess, less than like 200 million a year is sold
Mm,
across all the competitors.
okay.
So it's a really underpenetrated market. I find a lot of what we do is education first, which is fine, but that's tricky and it elongates your sales cycle.
Mm,
So it's kind of interesting because there's some folks in the market who are actively buying products, services, solutions like what we offer. they're
Mm,
easy to educate and kind of move, but it's a competitive market. And then there's a lot of education that goes along. So the former, I guess, applies here in a sense that finding the right market to target consistently where we can offer a lot of value, get through an education and close cycle is critical. And then the other side
mhm,
is because it's such a big market, there's really not a segment in healthcare that doesn't need a product or a service like Hart provides.
mm,
Um, Everybody needs something from data,
okay.
whether it's storing it, moving it, whatever. They're going through something. There's literally not a customer we've come across yet who doesn't have something.
Some need, yeah.
Yeah. And so that is where it's like refining those opportunities is important. Because you want to serve people in a way where everyone feels great about that value and the experience. And there are some markets we have no business serving,
Mm,
but they have needs. And so you want to help them, but um, finding that sweet spot of, our value where everybody feels great about what they're and the experience they're having and what's that
uh-huh,
come to fruition is really
yeah.
important.
Yeah, and it makes sense for the business as well to take those actions, right? So that's a piece of that as well that I know it's there, but you
Yeah.
just didn't bring it up
Yes.
as well. Yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
I love to actually tie it into a question that I ask almost every guest on the podcast. Then, so let's say you had a magic wand, Dominique, and you could just wave this amazing wand. This is a pen, not a wand, but imagine it is, and you could just wave that amazing wand and solve just one challenge, an obstacle, whatever you like to call it in the business, that would then allow you to have all your client acquisition goals reached, all your revenue goals, whatever targets that you have for the growth of the company.
Well,
I think a lot of times in business, we have so many different priorities that we're trying to take care of as leaders. But for
mhm.
this one, you just get one thing that would allow much growth, revenue, whatever it is, to be unlocked. What's the one thing you'd like to solve?
Yeah. Um, does it have to be an internal or an external problem?
It
One
can be either systems
my
internally, it
magic
can
wand.
be sales, it can be marketing, it can be whatever you want.
Okay. My biggest wish list magic wand item would be I find our number one challenge is becoming a trusted advisor to healthcare organizations of all kind.
Okay.
Um, there's a lot of reasons for that. It takes time and you have to do things of high value for your clients to build that.
Hmm.
So, my magic wand would be this. I would love to be able to educate clients about the dynamics in our market in a meaningful way for them,
Hmm. Mm,
help them make good choices about the solutions they deploy because I firmly believe two things that are maybe somewhat unpopular.
okay.
One is that um, as much as I want to make recurring revenue, it's not appropriate in all situations. And so
Okay.
let's find the right path to the right solutions for the right things. Like, for example, we have a lot of clients who store data all the time instead of putting it in their EHR. And I firmly believe that every healthcare organization should put as much data as possible in their EHR within reason. There's a time and a place to archive stuff, but I think we've got to get out of the habit of not doing things because they're hard.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
It is hard to put data in an EHR, I get it. Um, but it's the right thing to do for a lot of what we should be doing. So instead of storing it and never looking at it, I think it's the right thing for healthcare organizations to start moving as much data as possible into an EHR. They're like main EHR. So you can have complete patient records for your patients and your providers.
Mhm.
So that's one thing, just educating people that that's one possible and two high value for them for a lot of
Yeah.
reasons. And just starting there would solve a lot of my problems in life.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting you mentioned that because I think that goes back to what we said before, where that education then one, of course, gives them value, but it builds trust. It shows them that you're just helping them make the right decision, whatever that decision might be for them,
Yeah.
and then it just improves the relationship from the get go. So then you can actually improve that in a way, give them value faster, but also even improve the sales cycle that you have going on for them as well. Amazing. I have one final question for you,
Okay,
Dominique,
great.
which is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So
Awesome.
here's the question. You ready for it?
Ready.
This is an interesting one. At least I think so. When you give prospects prices to your products slash services, what is a strategy that you use? Single price, premium versus standard, or multiple different options?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I would say something we're still ironing out. But what I like to do for clients in our market is make the pricing as simple as possible. Um, Lots of reasons for it, but we have what can very quickly become complex in the number of patient records, the amount of data, where you store it. I can't even get into the litany of questions.
Yeah.
Um, so it can be overwhelming for our clients to like have to dig up all of these things.
Hmm.
So what we like to do is really kind of think about their core needs relative to their problems and kind of we package it like t-shirt sizing.
Hmm.
Physician clinics generally have less data. If you're out of a hospital but maybe you're imaging or something like that, we call those ambulatory. Maybe you have more data. Inpatient has a lot of data, right? So we try and take more of a t-shirt sizing approach to keep it super simple instead of diving into like really complex
Hmm.
things. Um, but I would say it's generally like a good fun conversation to go down like a lot of discovery first to
Hmm.
figure out what do
Hmm.
they really need
Yeah.
before we get there. But I do like to keep it as simple as possible because I think it's actually a really great differentiator for us to be easy to do business with in healthcare. Yeah.
As opposed to a million single items that you can have on,
Yeah.
right? And just gets more confused. It's like, no, hey, just let's find out what's actually best for you, and we'll sort that out.
Yeah.
One, two, three, four, five. So like, oh, this is too much. This is too
Yeah.
much.
Exactly. I would say it's almost kind of funny because I think at some point we too simplified it. And so we're pulling back a tiny bit so that people understand the different
Sure.
pieces to it.
Yeah.
But it's really more just to support kind of that understanding of like what you're
Of
truly
course.
getting. But yeah,
Of course.
absolutely. I think that helps a lot.
Amazing.
It's a good
Dominique Gross,
question.
everyone. Yeah, no, that wasn't mine. It was from someone else. Dominique, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate you. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about yourself and also, of course, a little bit more about Heart?
Yeah. We have a great webpage, Hart.com. Should have all of your information about the business, the company, the journey, the solutions, some great resources from customer stories and things. I have a LinkedIn, so you're welcome to find me on LinkedIn and happy to connect.
Amazing. I will leave as many links as I can down below here for Dominique and Hart. And if you enjoyed listening to this conversation, you want to hear more conversations like this, please hit the subscribe button and I will see you on the next episode. Dominique, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.